Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Chatter. I am your host speaking, Vicky Midwood, integrative health, nutrition and lifestyle coach. And I have got a guest with me. Yes, I am not going solo on this one. My guest today is Margie Chavasse, who used to be in finance until 2015 when she had a complete career change. And I wanted her to share with you her story as to what she does now and why she does it, because I think a lot of you are going to find a lot of ahas, takeaways from this story. She's also going to share with you how you can get her help should you need to. So over to you, Margie, and thank you for being here.
Oh, Vicky, it's an absolute delight to be here today. And thank you for asking to hear my story. So, yeah, I'm a kinesiologist with nutrition thrown in for good measure. But I used to be in finance. I was the director of finance.
Stop.
No.
It's still going weird.
No.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not quite sure what's happening because when we're talking like this, just speak to me again.
Yeah, okay. I'll just do the talking. When I was in, I used to be a director of finance of a multi-million-pound charity. Is that getting funny again?
Yeah.
Or is that all right? That's getting funny.
It is. How bizarre. Try your microphone again. But maybe try holding it in your hand. I don't know. Let's see what works.
Right.
Okay.
I'll just talk and say, yeah, Emily was 1.5 and we were on holiday and she got this rash. Is that all now sounding okay?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just pin the bottom of it into my boob.
Sounds good.
My head is about the same distance from my boob at all times.
I love it. Right, I tell you what we'll do.
I won't tell the audience that though.
We'll start one more time.
Okay, Vicky, sorry.
Right, here we go. Right, willing it now. So, hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Chatter. I am your host speaking. I am an integrative health, nutrition and lifestyle coach. And today I have got a great guest to share her amazing story of transformation, not of her own life to begin with, but of her daughter's. However, she did transition from being in finance to going into the world of health in 2015. I have got an amazing guest. Margie Chavasse is going to share her story of why she now does what she does and how she could potentially help you to get the answers that you might have been looking for a very long time. Over to you, Margie.
Vicky, thanks so much for that lovely introduction. I'm Margie Chavasse and I'm a kinesiologist. And I've done this since 2015, but before that, I was definitely really stuck in finance. And I'm the mother of a packet of girls, well, 3 of them really. And the youngest, when she was 1.5, back in the early 90s, had a rash and we didn't know what it was. And I didn't know what to do about it. And we just had to do something about it. Well, we ended up going to the doctor. He sent us to the hospital. The hospital sent us to a dietitian. We went round and round in circles and nothing seemed to be making any difference. Now, with my kind of logical head, I wanted to find out a solution. I wanted to find out a cause of this so that you could really solve it. And I wasn't getting that. So we went alternative. And I'm somebody who's so straight-laced. Honestly, I was brought up to feel that meditating was wacky. And so therefore, going off to find alternative practitioners was way outside my comfort zone. So we did. We failed. We found somebody eventually. And he was a kinesiologist. I didn't even know how to spell the word, let alone what one did. And he was 4 hours drive away from us, which meant we had an 8-hour drive to go there and go back. Because mid-90s, no internet, no postal service and wheels. That was the way you got the answers. So we went all that way, and she sat on my lap, and he did some testing stuff, and told me within that hour what the problem was, and even more importantly, what to do about it.
Wow. Can I just jump in there, just for people who may be asking themselves, what's a kinesiologist? And what was it about this person that made you decide it was worth that 4-hour drive to go seek their help?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what made it worth it is because I had tried. We were living in Dover and he was in Taunton. And I had tried every kind of alternative therapy I could come across. No internet to do any research on in those days. And I had just come up against blank after blank, things which just didn't work. And this was really taking its toll on the family as well, because I was really focusing on my youngest, whereas the other two were kind of not getting the level of attention from me I would have liked to have been able to give them at that point. So when somebody comes across another alternative, I'm ready to go. And that's what I didn't actually know what he was going to do. And I only found out latterly that he was a kinesiologist.
Right.
So the kinesiology part of it is a method that can really tap into you and find out what's really going on. And it's done really quickly, totally unobtrusive. You know, you're not having to actually kind of do any digging and diving and expensive.
It's not invasive.
And all that. Invasive. That's the word. Thank you, Vicky. Yeah, and incredibly quick and very, very accurate. Because the thing is that your body actually does know what's going on. It's just that it's held in your subconscious, and your conscious mind is only a small part of you. And that's where you do all your thinking and all of that kind of stuff. But the subconscious has got the whole encyclopedia of whatever's happened to you. And he could access that in Emily, aged 1.5, and therefore be able to work out what was going on. And when I saw him do that, I wanted to be able to do it too. Brilliant.
And that brings up a question in my mind and potentially in the listeners' minds as well, because at 1.5, I'm guessing that her vocal skills, she's going to have a vocabulary, but I'm guessing she's not going to be able to answer a great deal of questions. So you talked about that there was testing and he could find out very quickly what was wrong. So this is where you're saying that actually it wasn't just a load of questionnaires and she wasn't having to answer things. He could actually tell very quickly from what was going on with her body. Is that correct? What was happening?
Absolutely, yeah. It's quite difficult to explain. It's easier to show people, which I can't really do on a verbal interview. But so she sat on my knee, and I was like an electrical circuit to this chap. And I was just part of that electrical circuit. So yes, he asked me various questions, but he would then put on Emily a bit of milk, a little bit of milk, something like that. And then he would push on my arm, remembering I'm part of this circuit. And at that point, my arm wouldn't stay up. It went weak. So we knew milk was bad for her. And so it went, but it was very strange. All she had to do was sit there with her great big blue eyes and rather rashy skin until we found out really what was going on. And he said she had a leaky gut, which is something I'd never heard of. Right. And we went off and we followed his instructions, which was remove the foods which weren't helping her, put in a whole lot of supplements to help her heal better, and do various other bits and bobs. But yes, and we got her better. Vicky, it's so embarrassing. But it took a while to get her better. I mean, like a year. And that was because I was giving her, she wasn't allowed sugar. Okay. So she had to I had to be very careful about sugar and milk, and perhaps you won't be stunned by how many things have got one or of those in them. And so she wasn't allowed jam or anything like that. So I was putting Marmite on her cream crackers. But of course, one of the other things she wasn't allowed was yeast. And I was giving her basically neat yeast. So it took the poor little darling a little bit longer than it might have done to have got better. Gosh, it was a learning curve.
But this is where you were saying, now we have got the internet and we can find out what foods have got hidden ingredients that we didn't know were in there. But back then, you really didn't know. You needed somebody, didn't you, to tell you. And oftentimes it was a case of trial and error. But she did get better, and that sparked your desire to go, I want to know how to be able to do this myself.
Yeah, it did. And, so that was back in the mid-90s. And it's really embarrassing to say that it took me 20 years to actually get around to doing it. But I tried it. I did it for something the doctor said, oh, well, Mrs. Chavasse, you're just going to have to live with it until you get to menopause. And I was in my late 30s at the time. And I thought, oh, no, I don't think so. So I thought, oh, well, perhaps this malarkey with the old kinesiology would work for me. And, knocked my socks off. It did. And then another thing happened with my husband. And eventually I said, oh, please go and see a kinesiologist. And the kinesiologist got it back in a couple of sessions. So I had seen the evidence, and still it took me 20 years to actually get round to ditching what I was doing and start doing this. Never looked back, actually.
But sometimes I think we get so involved in the day-to-day, and you had 2 other children, and you were obviously, the job that you did, you were very good at it and you enjoyed it. So it's very difficult to find when is the right time to suddenly make a big career changing decision. And oftentimes it is, I think, when we're a little bit older, when we've got a bit more experience, when we're more confident in who we are as a person, and when we genuinely feel able to follow our heart's desire instead of following what we are good at and what we've always done and what we know because it's the easy option.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does. I agree. I think I'd probably do a far better job what I do now than I would have done if I had cracked off and done that when I was in my early 40s. I don't know. I'll never know. I've left that bit behind me.
Yes. But now so when somebody decides to suddenly make a career shift like that, I would imagine that it's quite a decision to find out where do you train, who do you go to get qualified with, and all of that kind of stuff. And then how long did your training take, and what did it entail? Did you have to have live case study clients? Explain to people just what you had to do to be able to follow your passion and get qualified.
Well, it's a funny thing, isn't it? I would say that my training in nutrition is what came first, but actually that's a lifelong job, because I've been cooking and turning out 3 square meals a day for a family of 4 or 5, and so I knew a lot about that, and I was always really inquisitive. Going back a while, when I was a teenager, I actually went to stay with somebody in France doing a French exchange, whereupon I just became very quiet, but rather than learn French. French wasn't my forte. And the mum there gave me vitamin supplements, and I found I woke up. And I had been in a total haze up to that point, but she was giving me these multivits, and it made such a difference. So from that point, I was hooked on the fact that actually what we all eat really influences how we feel. So that was part of it. But then with my training, I did a course which I kind of speeded up as much as I could, because we were sailing and I was doing it remotely. Right. I was sending my stuff back from the middle of the Atlantic, actually. And then I put the kinesiology on the top of that, I went to a lovely instructor, very, very experienced practitioner in the middle of the country. And we did a whole lot of live stuff there with her people. Yeah.
Nice. And so through the journey of you now working with clients and the whole lockdown scenario, because it's when you discovered that actually kinesiology can be done remotely. People don't have to drive 4 hours or however many hours it may take to come and see you in person. And I think that's the excitement of it. So tell me, how did you feel when you discovered that actually you could do it online and therefore you can be anywhere and help people?
Absolutely, it was fantastic. So I had a clinic not far from here, and I was going there, and my clients would come to me, blah blah. And then, as you say, lockdown came along, and I could no longer serve them and help them. And I am really driven by helping people. So this was not helping me not to be able to help them, I was talking to some fellow kinesiologists, and one of them said, yeah, she was managing to keep going because she'd learnt this technique. And as soon as I learnt it, you know, the more you do something, the better you get at it anyway.
Of course.
And now I just do online because it is much faster, actually, for me to get to the bottom of things than actually having the person with me. I still see a few people in person, but I prefer doing it all online.
Amazing. And one of the things that you have recognized is that so many people, I think, come to you as a final resort because they have been, as you did, round the merry-go-round of conventional doctors and specialists and what have you. And what have you found has been one of the most common issues, apart from looking at people's diet? What else have you found that keeps cropping up that people didn't even necessarily know about?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to answer it in a completely different way. Behind me, there's a whole list of symptoms that I might help people with, but all of them are really labels, and they are not necessarily the root cause.
Yeah.
So for those who aren't seeing the visual, there's irritable bowel, stress, Parkinson's, headaches, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And a common, well, always there will be some pathogenic load in there. There will be toxins, or there will be the dreaded word parasites. And we all have them, but it's how we control them.
Yes.
So when we get stressed, for instance, that will suppress our immune system because the body's just trying to keep you alive rather than bothering to do the fine bit. It's like your house. If you don't do anything on the inside, it begins to look a bit tatty, and there's no time to do the paintwork when you're stressed.
Yeah.
So at that point, those pathogens, the parasitic ones, are likely to get out of hand.
Right.
And people can have them for decades. I had one client recently who is in her 40s, and she picked up a very nasty parasite when she was 21. And it's been there all this time. She's been fine. And then a year later, last year, she suddenly got seriously ill. But anyway, she's back to being fine now. And these parasites are all sorts of different sizes. There isn't only one solution. You can't just do a parasite cleanse and hope that they're going to go. And they all tie up with bacteria, viruses, toxins, and mold as well. So you're dealing, there's 5 sides to this, really, all of which have got to be dealt with kind of simultaneously.
And I think that's such an important thing for people to hear, is that your conventional GP and oftentimes even an integrative health or a functional medicine practitioner may not be as au fait with parasites and just how to treat them in the right way for each person as perhaps they'd like to be. But with what you do with kinesiology, this is where it's almost like magic to people who suddenly get the answers, because you can be very clear and very specific, can't you?
Yeah, you can really be specific. One of the things which made me realize about the parasitic infections was another one of my daughters was very close to having chronic fatigue. And she was working in London, and I could see this drain of her energy. It was going down and down and down week on week. And so I brought her home, and a friend of mine in the kinesiology world said, "Oh, what about parasites?" And this was the missing link. So she went to the friend and cleared out masses of lots of different types of parasites, but they were causing her chronic fatigue. They were the underlying thing. It's a shame it just took me so long to realize, but so much in my life has taken me a long time to realize.
Better late than never, though, I have to say.
Better late than never.
So you have got a download actually on parasites, haven't you, on your website? That we're going to put the details in the show notes if you're listening on podcast, and also in the description if you're watching on YouTube, and you'll just be able to literally click on that link and get that download straight away. But that doesn't mean then that we're recommending that people go off and start saying to everybody that they've got parasites, because they do need to be treated in the correct way. And I think the important thing for you to get across and for me to get across is that they are not all the same, and therefore the treatment is definitely not all the same. So what sort of things can people perhaps recognize in themselves that may have an underlying parasite cause, apart from what you've already said, which is chronic fatigue? Because there's a couple of other things, if I'm not incorrect, that tend to be quite prominently linked to parasites, but people have no clue. Do you want to share a bit more on some of the main ones that people may go, oh?
Yeah, there's lots. Oh, golly. So if you've got achy wrists, achy bones, that's often a parasitic thing. If you find digesting fats, so perhaps you've been told that you've got problem with your bile or your gallbladder.
Yeah.
So often those are infested with a parasitic infection. And also hurting liver can be part of it. Skin, yeah, you can get all sorts of things there. Well, just it's a bit tricky, really.
I think those two are quite important ones, because there are a number of people who have gone down the road of having gallbladder removal because that's what conventional medicine has recommended, and they didn't even know that potentially there could be a root cause that is to do with parasites. But also the aching muscles, aching bones, aching joints that often we put down to overdoing it and old age and potentially menopause or things like rheumatism, that not necessarily that is what the issue is. So how do people get in touch with you and find out what is actually going on for them?
Yeah, absolutely. There's my website. Well, if you can just Google my name, Margie Chavasse, you will find me.
Yeah.
My website is nrg-nutrition.com. And you can find me obviously there. And LinkedIn is the social media that I tend to be on. So please do ping me on that one. So I'm on all of those. Can I just tell you one little one about where parasites might be? And this is a bit embarrassing for a lot of people. But if they find actually their bladder control isn't as good as they'd like it to be, that so often isn't just because your muscles are weaker, it's because there's a little parasitic infection there.
Wow. And I can see a lot of women
get rid of.
A lot of older women going, oh, ping, 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 that's potentially me, because I know that a lot of women think that that is part of the aging process, and it absolutely is not, is it?
It doesn't need to be. It really doesn't need to be.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. And I also want you to just share a little bit more about, because you mentioned that you did your training from the middle of the ocean. So tell people a little bit more about your hobby and what you do in your spare time as well, because it's not really a hobby, it's quite a major thing, isn't it, about your sailing?
And it's not really spare time.
No, it's not.
So, yes, we're very, very fortunate in as much as we have a yacht, which, and my husband is a very keen sailor, and I'm a keen sailor. You've got to keep up, really. And so we tend to go off and for about 3 months every year. And that particular trip, we were off to the Azores, and then we came back. And then we are currently in Sweden. And we'll be coming back again next year. So yes, and France as well. We do lots of sailing on the west coast of France, but we love it. I love it. It's such fun. But I work from the boat. We can get internet everywhere these days.
And this is the joy, isn't it, of having the internet, but also recognizing that for people who think that distance or location is a barrier to seeking help, it absolutely is not. So if you are in the slightest bit, worried about, oh, can you get there? And is it going to take a lot of time and what have you? Have a chat with Margie. Margie, you do a free consultation initially, don't you? To make sure that you are actually in a position to be able to help somebody with their issues. And Margie, like me, will not lead you up the garden path. If she doesn't think she can help you, she will tell you. But conversely, if she does, she will be able to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all over my website where to click, and then you can book a half-hour free of charge discovery call and find out a little bit more about what's really going on with you. And yes, I'll just signpost anybody to the right solution. And usually for my clients, dare I say it, we tend to get a result within a couple of months. Good results. So.
Right. So this is the other thing as well. I think a lot of people think that alternative therapies have to take ages. And the answer is they don't. As long as you are treating them in the way that's been recommended, and basically doing as you should, there is no reason why you can't get a result pretty quickly. So I'd like you to finish off, if you wouldn't mind, by sharing your overriding message to people about their body and what it's designed to do.
Well, your body will always do the best it can for you, given the circumstances it finds itself in. And there's more solutions out there than any of us are really aware of. I'm sorry, hang on. So when I'm dealing with people, we're looking at the inside out, because your body's got the solution. And when you look at conventional solutions, they're often applying the answer from the outside in, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's quite so accurate.
Yeah. And the body does have the solution. It's just that we need a little bit of help to be able to know what that solution is. And the majority of us need the help of a specialist and an expert who can talk body and read the signs in a way that most of us don't actually know how to do. I think for anybody listening who's ever wondered what kinesiology is, that I hope now you've got a little bit more of a clue. It is one of those, I think it's one of those alternative therapies that has been kept quiet and in the dark for way too long. And it's been there for a long, long time. And I'm just hoping that more and more people will now be able to recognize how powerful it is and how quickly people can actually get to the root cause and feel more energized and have the life that they want to have. And with your help, I'm hoping we can do that. Margie, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Any last tidbits or words of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with?
No, I don't think so, Vicky. I've loved being on this, and there's masses more information about what I do and more tips and things on the website. So please, people, do go and have a look at that. And I'm always wanting to help people.
Thank you so much. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Please do check out the links, grab that free download. And if we have shared anything on here that you think may be helpful to somebody that you know, please do pass on this link and get them to be able to listen to it for themselves. I'm also going to invite you to subscribe so you don't miss being notified of when the next episode is out. And if you have enjoyed what you've heard, give us a thumbs up and give us a like. The more people that can spread the message about health and well-being, the more people who recognize that the body does have answers. We just need to start to listen better and take the right steps, the healthier as a nation we're going to be. And on that note, I want to say thank you once again for listening, and I'll see you next time on Raw Chatter.